Well, hello again out there, folks in YouTube world. I hope you all are doing well. Thank you all for joining me today again for another fun day in the jam room. I've got a special class for you guys today that I am calling Rock and Roll 101. All right. I'm going to teach you guys some things that I learned. Let me see if I can just adjust some stuff so you can see some things. All right. So today we are going to be talking about something very near and dear to my heart, which is called rock and roll. Okay, guys? Now, I'm going to lay out for you what I think are some of the most important rules of rock and roll. Okay. Rule number one is there are no rules. None whatsoever. Okay? Because rock and roll is about, doing what makes you happy. Okay? So even though I'm going to lay out a bunch of rules, at the end of this video, I hope you are thinking to yourself, you know what? The first rule of rock and roll, as Zach told me, was that there are no rules to rock and roll. And that's exactly what I want you to be thinking about. Okay, so that's rule number one, all right? Most important. Rule number two, numero uno, okay? You gotta look cool, whatever that means to you, all right? I happen to be a subscriber of the what would you call it? The Johnny Cash approach. I very much appreciate being a man in black. I think it looks cool. It looks cool to me, you guys. So that's what I'm going with. All right. And I also think that rock and roll is about being the coolest version of yourself that you can discover and share with the world. Okay, so today I wore my all black for all you guys out there because I think it looks cool. All right, that's simple. Also, rock and roll is very important while you're looking cool, that your hair look cool. Okay, most rock and rollers have long, luscious hair. I don't quite have that going on for me anymore. But you know what you can do? You just got to work with what you got, okay? So I try to make my hair look cool, but right now, I don't know, it looks a little boring. So I'm going to mess it up a little bit. Oh, yeah, that's looking more like some rock and roll hair, okay? So if you look like you just rolled out of bed, that is a good look for rock and roll, okay? It's very important when you're trying to look cool that you don't try to, you can't care too much about looking cool. It's a little secret about being cool. Or another thing I can recommend very highly, if you don't have long hair and messing it up just doesn't make you feel like you're looking very cool, then you can do this. I recommend a rock and roll hat, okay? For any of us who feel like, that's pretty cool, man. Okay, and you want to go for a big, eccentric, very, very eye-catching hat. Okay, so that's what I recommend. You do not want to go with like a hat that you would wear to an afternoon barbecue. All right, I got plenty of those, and I love wearing those at barbecues. But you want to wear a big, crazy-looking hat if you're going to go the hat direction. I decided on my big black hat because I'm a man in black. I think it looks cool. All right, that is rule number two. Number three rule of rock and roll is you have to kind of, sort of learn how to play the guitar a little bit, okay? It is not important that you be a great guitar player at all, okay? What is important is that you kind of get a few basics down and then you just go to town and make it as fun as you can make it, all right? So that is rule number three. You got to sort of kind of learn how to play a little bit of guitar, basically. Rule number four, moving right along, You have got to decide to spend all of your time when you're first becoming a rock and roller looking for really cool stuff. And by stuff, I mean rock and roll gear, okay? I'm going to introduce you guys to a few things that I can recommend. Number one, all right, is a microphone. All right, this is a Shure SM58. That is the standard of all rock and roll and really live music around the world. And if you can dent your little cover here or something like that, make it look a little more rock and roll, I highly recommend it. So that is number one. You're going to want, I have one set up right here for you guys that I'm going to use in this little session right now. But I wanted you to know about the tricks of the trade, okay? Because you got to get into it if you're going to learn to be a rock and roller. The other thing is you got to learn to find a really cool, really rare guitar that nobody else has, okay? It's really important to try to be unique in rock and roll, okay? So today I have selected my 1966 National Studio 60. Is the edition of this guitar. It is from the 1960s. It is not a very expensive guitar. It does not sound particularly awesome all of the time. And that's kind of a part of rock and roll, is you kind of just got to work your way through it, okay? But this is one of my favoriteest guitars. I have named this guitar Buddy because I am a huge fan of the blues guitar player, Mr. Buddy Guy, and I actually had this guitar strap made for myself at the same exact place that Buddy Guy gets his guitar straps made. And the woman who made this guitar strap for me said that Buddy Guy would sign it for me. So back in 2012, when I was living in New York City, I got Buddy Guy to sign my guitar strap that is inspired by his guitar straps. And that's just a little piece of rock and roll mojo right there, okay? So this guitar is hollow inside, all right? It is made out of what is called reso glass, which is a really fancy term for really, really thick plastic. So the entire body of this guitar is made out of 60s plastic that they would have used on like airplanes and stuff like that. So this is a really, really great instrument for playing some rock and roll. It is very lightweight, which means I can move around a bit, which is also important to rock and roll. You kind of got to get into it a little bit. I'm going to be singing into a microphone, but whenever I'm not singing, I'm going to be moving, okay? Because that's a part of rock and roll. You got to look like you're having fun on stage. All right, back to the rules though, all right? Okay, so rule number, what was I on? Rule number 4, fourth rule. You got to spend all your time looking for a really cool guitar and not really playing that really cool guitar initially. You got to just get the coolest stuff that you can get first. And then worry about learning the guitar a little bit later. It's fine. It'll come, okay? It's not about being the best rocker out there. It's about having fun, okay? Rule number 5. Rule number 5. This one is tricky. I don't have the best lighting in this room, so please pardon me. But rule number 5 is you gotta make funny faces while you are making rock and roll, okay? So some faces that are go-to faces for rock and rollers throughout history are, you gotta look like you just smelled something really bad, like, oh man, that doesn't smell good. That's a good rock and roll face, okay? Also, I can recommend the I just ate a lemon face. Man, that's really, really tart. Okay, that is a really good rock and roll face. Another one I like to call the breath of fire. When you open up your mouth and you're just like, that is also a really good rock and roll face. If you guys are practicing at home on your rock and roll faces and would like to share those with me in the comment section, please, please chime in. I would love to know some ideas for some new rock and roll faces for myself too. Okay, so we got that. We got rule number 5 taken down. Rule number 6, on the rules of rock and roll is you got to learn, like initially, really, you could get by for a long time with about 4 chords on the guitar. If you learn about 4 chords on the guitar, you can learn so many classic rock songs. It is incredible. But I would open up that span to about a dozen. So anywhere from 4 to 12 chords on a guitar, and you are going to be in the money for playing some killer classic rock tunes, okay? As I'm playing a few, I'll try to call out what chords I'm playing today, so that you guys may try to figure out some of this at home, all right? So number 6, you gotta learn a couple of chords, you guys, I'm sorry. And keep in mind, it's not about playing them perfectly at all, okay? It's about having fun with music and rock and roll. Okay, number 7. The final rock and roll rule of the day is you gotta play loud. Rock and roll is about loud music in your ears. It's kind of an assault on the eardrum sometimes, okay? Today, that is going to present some pretty interesting issues with trying to play for all of you at a volume that you can enjoy at home. So I'm going to not follow my own rule today, and I'm going to try to keep things relatively soft and quiet in the master volume of all the stuff that we got going on. All right, so another thing I will show you guys today in the jam room is this is my electric guitar amplifier. Okay, I have this turned way down for the purposes of this video, but that's what this thing is going to be plugged into. I have some pedals here on the ground, just a couple today. I'm not going to get too crazy with all the effects, but I got a tuning pedal right there, which also mutes the channel so you don't have to listen to me tuning. And then I've got a homemade compression pedal back there, which just kind of squashes my sound and makes it sound cool. All right, because it's all about being cool, you guys. I don't want you to forget these rules, all right? And what's the most important rule? Rule number 1, there are no rules, okay? So you come up with your own rules for rock and roll, and I would love to hear them. All right. So I think we've had a really good talk about rock and roll so far. I'm really excited to share with you some of my favorite rock and roll tunes that I first learned when I first picked up the guitar in like the first year that I was playing. I'm going to play you guys some tunes I have not played for quite some time, and we will see how that goes, okay? So I am going to equip myself with my super cool looking guitar, all right? This guitar does not stay in tune all of the time, but that's part of the fun. When it is in tune, it sounds great to my ears, and really, you got to be your own judge. Okay. Also, I have got my instrument cable right here, which is plugged into those pedals down on the ground, and then going back into that guitar amplifier. Okay. And I'm going to do the very cool what professionals do, where they tuck their instrument cable into their guitar strap, all right, before they plug it in. All right, that is my input jack on my guitar. This is a tone knob, and this is a volume knob on my guitar. And this has one pickup. Okay, it's very simple, very easy to work with. Okay, there are guitars that have all sorts of numbers of pickups. I've seen up to 4 pickups on electric guitars for all sorts of different sounds. But I'm not worried about having all kinds of crazy cool sounds today. I'm worried about making some rock and roll, okay? So this one pickup is going to be just fine for me today. All right. Next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to tune my guitar, okay? The top string up here on the the thickest string, on the string closest to my face, is tuned to an E, okay? That is an E, and it's looking pretty good. So I'm going to move on. The next string down, I'm going to just work my way down all of these strings. The next string on here is an A. And that is also looking pretty good. I was just playing this a couple minutes ago while I was warming up. So this is relatively in tune right now, which is nice. I will probably have to do this in between songs today, so please give me your patience on that, and I will appreciate it. The next string down is a D string, okay? That is also looking mighty nice. The next string down is my G string. That one is always a little funky for some reason on this guitar, and it needs a little help. Also, very important to remember when you are tuning, do not crank the tuners super dramatically, okay? Very small turns of your tuning knobs will serve you far better, I have discovered in my history with playing guitar. Okay, next string down, working our way down, this all 6 strings. This is the 5th one towards the bottom, is our B string. And that one also can get a little squirrely on you. And I'm pretty good shape here. And then my final string is an E again. Okay, just like the very first string, but it is much higher. Okay, so I got my E, and it's looking good. So now I've turned off my tuner, and I should hear sound through my amplifier whenever I strum anything. So I'm going to strum an E chord, which is one of my favorite chords. All right. That sounds, as we like to say in the rock and roll game, good enough for rock and roll. Okay? You get your tuning pretty close, and then you just got to rock out and bear with it. There will always be tuning issues in the world. So the next thing I'm going to do is I've got another little amp over here turned way down for my microphone, for my voice today. So I'm going to turn that on so that you might be able to hear my voice a little more amplified. And the only effect that I have going on this is a little tiny bit of reverb. If you are going to get into rock and roll, you need to equate yourself. All right. Oh man. Okay, sounds good. Yeah, thank you, Michael, for the update. I'm glad this is public and working. Thank you for being the man behind the scenes there. Okay, so we've got a plugged-in guitar. I hope that isn't too loud for y'all out there. I'm not going to be playing super, super strong and loud. And then we've got a plugged-in voice, which I also hope is not too loud for you all. A guitar and a voice. A guitar and a voice. Yes, here we are. I'm going to adjust my angle of my shot just a little bit so that you guys may see me. Here we go. Yeah. All right. So after we have gone over the rules of rock and roll, now we're just going to get to some rock and roll. All right. I appreciate that. Sweet, sweet. Let me know after this tune here, Michael. All right, so the first tune that we're going to play on Rock and Roll 101 is one of the first tunes that I ever learned playing guitar. I don't even know how many years ago. And the name of this tune I selected as our first tune is called Keep On Rockin' in the Free World. All right, this is a tune that is written by one of my favorite rock and rollers, Mr. Neil Young, okay? And this does not have a lot of chords in it, you guys, at all. Starts on an E, okay? And it's kind of a thumpy kind of an E. I'll play for you guys, and then I'll talk about it a little bit. See the colors on the street, red, white, and blue. People shuffling their feet, people sleeping in their shoes. There's warning sign on the road ahead. There's a lot of people thinking we'd be better off dead. I don't feel like Satan, but I am to them, so I try to forget it any way I can. Keep on rocking in the free world. 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 See a woman in the night with a baby in her hand, under an old street light near a garbage can. Now she's put the kid away and she's gonna get ahead. How she hates her life, what she's done to it. There's one more kid that'll never go to school, never get to fall in love, never get to be cool. Keep on rocking in the free world. 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 Got 1,000 points of light for the homeless man. We got a kind of gentler machine gun hand. Got department stores full of toilet paper. We got styrofoam boxes for the ozone layer. Got a man of the people says keep them alive. We got fuel to burn and roads to drive. Keep on rocking in the free world. 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 All right, so that's our first rock and roll song of the day. I'm going to keep it rolling on here on the Rock and Roll 101, proudly sponsored by all rockers everywhere. All right, I'm going to play you guys another one of my favorite classic rock tunes. What's up, buddy of mine, Mr. Sam? Good to see you out there. I am doing a whole special today on some of my favorite rock and roll songs, okay? That last one was from Mr. Neil Young, godfather of grunge rock, as some people might call him. And this next one is from a band from San Francisco that is one of my absolute favorite rock bands called the Creedence Clearwater Revival. All right, so this next tune is called Proud Mary. They took the job in the city, working for the man every night rolling day, and it never longs to man in sleep. And what about the way things might have been? Big wheels keep on turning, proud Mary keep on burning, and we're rolling, rolling, rolling on the river, rolling, rolling, rolling on the river. Cleaned a lot of plates in Memphis, bumped a lot of tame down in New Orleans, and I never saw the good side of the city. And I used to ride on the riverboat queen. Big wheels keep on turning, proud Mary keep on burning, and we're rolling, rolling, rolling on the river. Yeah, we're rolling, rolling, rolling on the river. If you go down to the river, bet you're gonna find some people who live. You don't have to worry if you got no money. People on the river happy to give. Big wheels keep on turning, proud Mary keep on burning, and we're rolling, rolling, rolling on the river. Yeah, we're rolling, rolling, rolling on the river. All right, so that is one of my absolute favorite rock and roll tunes from the Creedence Clearwater Revival. I highly recommend, if you have not heard the Ike and Tina Turner version of that song, it is a whole nother step up from the version that I just played. But I'm keeping it simple today, guys, because I want you guys to see that it's really not that hard to learn a few chords and get into some music together. All right. Thank you, guys. So in that song, pretty much the chords I am playing are a D chord, all the beginning part, and I'm doing a hammer-on these two notes of my D chord, but you don't have to worry about that if you're just strumming along at home or trying to figure this out, okay? It's just a D chord. Big wheels keep on turning. That's an A chord right there. You can finger that several different ways. It's right in the center of this. You can look this up on the internet and get a really good handle exactly where it is on the fretboard there. But there's my A chord. Big wheels keep on turning to a B minor chord. Proud Mary keep on burning, and we're rolling right back to the D chord. You guys, that part is just 3 chords. It's a D chord, an A chord, and a B minor. And then you're right back to D. And then we got a few other chords that show up in the song, but it's really not that tough, okay? That one is one of my absolute favorites. I'm sure those of you listening closely could hear all sorts of mistakes that me was making in that video. But you know what? When you're playing rock and roll, it don't matter, you guys. It don't matter. Oh, okay, Sam. I will play that song for you. That's one of my songs. I really appreciate the request, the $68 songs. Okay, all right. Well, I'm not a kind of guy that typically can take requests because I know a very limited amount of songs. But you know my own song catalog so well, Sam, that I will definitely play that song for you. Okay, so I'm going to pivot for a moment from my classic rock set list that I had going on here, and I'm going to play you guys one of my songs called $68. Got $68 to my name, and I don't catch an ounce of fame, but I got my bills paid, and I don't catch an ounce of shame. No, I'm not cracking up. No, I'm not breaking down. I'm just wising up to what's going down. I'm standing on my own too, in a part of the city that you'd be afraid to use. I've been cutting my own path through the tall grass with the lamb. No, I'm not cracking up. No, I'm not breaking down. I'm just wising up to what's going down. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. There is Mr. $68 from Mr. Sam, man. Feels a little funny to play that guitar part at the end without the rest of my band. I'm so glad that we could be together this afternoon, Sam, and that I could play that song for you. Man, I'm so glad that you enjoyed that song so much. Thank you, my man. All right, I'm gonna get back to my planned set list of some classic rock tunes that I learned when I was first playing guitar many years ago. Okay, so we are going to go to a tune that was made most famous by a band called the Animals. All right. And this is a dose of some really old school rock and roll. And the name of this song is called The House of the Rising Sun. You know what? I realized, because I played this one with my fingertips instead of with my pick, that I am going to turn up just very, very slightly my guitar. I'm turning it up on my volume knob here on my guitar instead of on my amp behind me, because my amp volume could make it super, super duper loud, and I just want it a little bit louder. So that's why I'm selecting to increase my volume here instead of back there. And we could talk about the ins and outs of volume and pedals and guitars and amps and everything else on another video chat. All right, but here is House of the Rising Sun. There is a house in New Orleans they call the Rising Sun. It's been the ruin of many a poor boy. God knows I'm one. My mother was a tailor. She sold my new blue jeans. My daddy was a gambling man way down in New Orleans. My daddy, I got it now. The only thing gambler has is a suitcase and a trunk. The only time he's satisfied is when he's on a drum. I got one foot on the platform and the other on the train. Headed back to New Orleans to wear that ball and chain. Now, mothers, tell your children not to do what I have done. Spend your life in sin and misery in the house of the rising sun. There is a house in New Orleans they call the Rising Sun. It's been the ruin of many a poor boy. God knows I'm one. Okay, so that is the House of the Rising Sun, and it might sound like it's got a lot going on, maybe to your ear, but really, I want to break it down super, super sensible. Absolutely, man. I look forward to hanging out whenever we can, as soon as we can, as well, Sam. Definitely, my man. All right, so. House of the Rising Sun starts on A minor, and then it goes to C, then it goes to D, and then it goes to F. That's kind of like the first part, maybe. And then it goes back to A minor again, to C, to E, and then that's like the next part, sort of. And then the third part is kind of the same as the first one. A minor, C, D, to F. And then the final part is just A minor, to E, to A minor, to E. And that's the whole song. So really, you learn a couple of chords and you can figure out some really cool classic rock songs. And I highly recommend it. It's super fun to just play around a campfire with some friends sometime, which hopefully we all will be doing sooner rather than later. Right, let's see. Let's keep the ball rocking. Okay, next song on the rock and roll set list that I drew up today is from one of the greatest rock and roll bands of all time. No, I'm not talking about these Beatles over here, although you can't really see them. I do really, really love the Beatles, as you might see, as evidence from my tapestry. But I'm talking about the other greatest rock and roll band in the world, the Rolling Stones. All right? So we're going to do a little bit of Rolling Stones. I dig it, Sam. I dig it very much, my man. I will think up a way to try to walk us through some of the basics together on another class. I promise. So, the Rolling Stones. I'm going to play you guys one of my favorite tunes from the Rolling Stones, which is not normally played on a guitar, which is another kind of cool thing about learning some basic chords on a guitar, is that you can play all sorts of songs, even if they're not really even guitar songs. So this one isn't really famous for being played on the guitar, so I kind of made up my own little version of it. And it goes a little something like this. Oh, the name of this tune is called Sympathy for the Devil. Please allow me to introduce myself. I am a man of wealth and taste. Been around for a long, long year. So many man's soul and faith. I was around when Jesus Christ had his moment of doubt and pain. Been damn sure that the pilot washed his hands and sealed his fate. Pleased to meet you. Hope you guess my name. But what's puzzling you is the nature of my game. I stuck around St. Petersburg when I heard it was time for a change. strange. I killed the Tsar and his ministers. Anastasia screamed in vain. I rode a tank, held a general's rank when the blitzkrieg raged and the bodies stained. Pleased to meet you. Hope you guessed my name. But what's puzzling you is the nature of my game. I watched with glee while your kings and queens fought for 10 decades for gods they made. I shouted out, who killed the Kennedys, when after all, it was you and me. So let me please introduce myself. I am a man of wealth and taste. I laid the traps for the troubadours who got killed before they reached Bombay. Pleased to meet you. Hope you guessed my name. But what's troubling you is the nature of my game. Just as every cop is a criminal, and all the sinners are saints. As heads, tails, just call me Lucifer, 'cause I'm in need of some restraint. So if you meet me, have some courtesy, have some sympathy, and some taste. Use all your well-learned polities, or else I'll have to lay your soul to waste. Pleased to meet you. Hope you guessed my name. But what's troubling you is the nature of my game. All right, that's some Rolling Stones. I see some fresh comments coming in. I'm going to take a closer look here real quick. Wow. Yeah, the Rolling Stones. One of the things I love about the Rolling Stones, because I explained at the top of this video that one of my favorite musicians is Mr. Buddy Guy, an old blues player. And hey, thanks, Michael. That's awesome. Yeah, oh, that's super sweet. The Rolling Stones is actually took their name from a old blues song that was written by Mr. Muddy Waters back in the very, very early rock and roll days. I want to say late 50s or early 60s. He had a lyric talking about being a Rolling Stone. And the Rolling Stones band from England really got into Muddy Waters recordings early in their years. Oh, so cute. And they took their name from that song lyric of Mr. Muddy Waters. And then years later, they actually traveled to Chicago to meet Muddy Waters and record in his studio. The studio and label that he was working for at the time was called Chess Records, an absolute classic. If you want to get into old blues at all, I highly recommend Chess Records recordings. From Muddy Waters to Howlin' Wolf, Little Walter, all sorts of amazing artists came through there. Oh man, ooh, Sam, I'm sorry, I don't know that tune. But you know who would be a great person to request that one to is Mr. Tyler Duvall. I know he's got that one down, and I'm sure that we'll be seeing some videos from him very, very soon. Like I said, I have a limited amount of songs that I know how to play, so taking requests is a little trickier for me. But I am going to treat you guys to some more of my favorite rock tunes here. I think any set about rock and roll would be incomplete without one of my favorite rockers, Mr. Tom Petty. Okay, so I'm going to play you a Tom Petty song. Let's see. Yeah, here we go. I'm going to play you guys. This has got to be like one of the first songs that I figured out how to play on the guitar when I was in college, and still remains one of my absolute favorite ones to this day. So without further ado, this is the classic Free Fallin' for Mr. Tom Petty. She's a good girl, loves her mom, loves horses in America too. She's a good girl, crazy about Elvis, loves Jesus, and her boyfriend too. It's a long way, living in Reseda, this freeway. Going through the yard, a bad boy, 'cause I don't even miss her. I'm a bad boy, breaking her heart, and I'm free. Free falling, I'm free. Free falling. All the vampires walking through the valley, the west end, Ventura Boulevard. Bad boys hiding in the shadows, and all the good girls with broken hearts, and I'm free. Free falling, yeah, I'm free. Free gonna ride down over Mulholland, gonna write your name in the sky, gonna free fall out over nothing, I'm gonna leave this world for a while, and I'm free. Free falling, yeah, I'm free. Free falling. now I'm free falling, now I'm free falling, now I'm free falling, free falling, now I'm free falling, now I'm free falling, now I'm free falling, now I'm free falling, yeah, I'm free falling. All right, you guys. Well, that was Rock and Roll 101 with Mr. Zach Yurkovic coming at you loud and proud, you guys. All right, Sam, thank you. Thank you. Man, that song has been a very important song to me for a very, very long time, Sam. I think I got to a point where my family would request for me to play it so many times when I was first learning guitar. I was like, man, I need to learn some other songs. But I am so glad to share it with you this afternoon. It's been a long time since I played it, and I forgot how much I love that song. So thank you, Sam. It is a fabulous song, one of the best out there. And thank you for joining me this afternoon. And for all of you who may see this later, please feel free to write in some comments or whatever, and I will try to respond to them after this is live. I'll still be checking in on this video and seeing what you guys think, and I'll try to come up with some more cool ideas. And go back to the beginning of this video, which wasn't live initially for a second there because I messed up. I'm still learning too, because I laid out some very essential rules for rock and roll. And the first rule is there are no rules. All right, guys. Have a great afternoon, and I will see you all soon.